Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're going to go back to my homeland once again, into a city that is very dear to me, and that of course is Aberdeen, where I used to study chemistry, and many of you will probably know that that is home to Brewdog actually. So we're going to have a taste of one of the beers from their Prototype 2015 range. This is the third one in the series that I'm having a look at, and this one is the Black IPA. It comes in at 5.3% and it was rated 90 overall in Rate Beer. The other beers I've tried in this series so far have been pretty awesome actually, and this one was actually made into the B-side Black IPA, so I guess it was good enough to go in to be one of their kind of one-off brews or something, so should be quite interesting. It was rated at 90 overall in Rate Beer, but only 38 within the style, so that kind of tells you it should be a little bit quirky. But as I say, I was impressed with the other two beers I've done so far, so I'm sure this one will be pretty good too. A lot of people have told me that the Prototype 2015s are the best ones that they've tried so far, so we'll see how we get on, but on the basis of the ones so far, I would agree. But anyway, as is usual with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about Brewdog, very briefly though, because I've done many Brewdog reviews for you before. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other Brewdog reviews, of which there are about 90 now, so make sure you check those out. There's all the usual social media, and if you want to see more beer reviews, do subscribe to the channel. So anyway, to tell you a bit about Brewdog, so as I've told you many a time, Brewdog were founded back in 2007 by two Aberdonian guys, James Watt and Martin Dickey, and their first brewery was in Fraserburgh in the very northeast corner of Scotland, but later on they moved to their new site in Ellon, which is closer to the city of Aberdeen. They've got a very nice shiny facility there, and they're also going to open up a second brewery over in Columbus, Ohio in the United States. But these guys are known for being a very experimental brewery, particularly for their strong beers as well, the Sink the Bismarck, Tactical Nuclear Penguin, and also the End of History. But these guys are largely inspired by the craft brewing renaissance in America, primarily West Coast beers actually. They often cite Stone Brewing Company as a major kind of influence, and they do say that their trademark style is the IPA and double IPA, but personally I would say they produce some pretty damn nice stout beers as well, and one of my personal favourites is the Dogma, which is a Scotch ale. But they've got several brew pubs now. The first of these opened in Aberdeen back in 2010. I was there on the opening night. Don't remember much of it, mind you, but since then they've spread all throughout the rest of Scotland, down into England as well, and further afield. They're in Japan, in Brazil, France I believe, Spain, here in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, I think Finland as well. They're all over the place now, so there's many opportunities for you to try Brewdog beer. But one of the most interesting things is of course their business model, and this is the Equity for Punk scheme. So this is where fans of the brewery like you and I can buy shares, and essentially it means that you get a lifetime discount within the shops and the bars and things, and this is how they've raised a lot of their money to expand as quickly as they have. They really are quite a big craft brewery now, but compared to some of the bigger ones like Sierra Nevada, they are still kind of pretty small, but they're doing pretty well, and they're probably the best known Scottish craft brewery today. They're the largest independently owned Scottish craft brewery, and one of the more recent developments that was very cool was that they released their all their recipes in the DIY dog, so that home brewers can learn to brew beer by copying the Brewdog stuff. So it's pretty cool actually. A lot of cool things come out from Brewdog, so if you're studying business, I guess this is a pretty cool model for you to follow. So yeah, they've done a lot of it through social media, and you have to give them credit for how quickly they've grown. They've done pretty damn well, I have to admit. But anyway, let's actually get on to the review of this beer itself. So as I've told you before, every year Brewdog have certain ranges of beer. Up until recently they had the IPA is Dead, which was a series of single hop IPAs. They have their Paradox series as well, which is imperial stouts aged in different whiskey barrels. They've also had other things that come out as well. The Hello My Name Is series, which are IPAs with different types of berries in them. But they also have these guys, which are the Prototype beers. And with the Prototypes, they release 3 or 4 of these a year, usually at the end of the year. This one was released in December 2015. And the following year, the beer that gets voted in by the fans out of these 4 becomes a headliner or one of their core range for the following year. This scheme of course produced Jackhammer and Coco Psycho, one of Brewdog's best beers, and the Vagabond, which I believe is the gluten-free pale ale, was actually produced in one of these series as well, and that one is still going, so pretty cool. It's an interesting way to expand their core range. So their core range of beers is expanding all the time, which is pretty interesting. But this one itself is a 5.3% Black IPA. It's a single hop Black IPA with Simcoe. Usually you get some nice piney flavours, a bit of apricot, passion fruit sort of thing from that hop. And the malt base in this one is extra pale, Cara, Crystal and Carafa malt. So it should be pretty nice. Like I told you at the start of the video, rated at 90 overall on Rate Beer, but only 38 within the style, so it should be quite quirky. As you can see, the standard Brewdog prototype artwork on this one, the usual bottle cap as well. You can write your tasting notes on the back of the bottle as well. Best before the 25th of November 2016, this one, so should be quite nice. This one was released, of course, I think in early December of 2016, or 2015 I should say, sorry. But yeah, as you can see, a nice smoky opening when we pop the bubble, but we'll get this guy out and into the glass. But the Black IPA is a style I've been getting more and more into recently. It's one thing actually, living here in Lund in Sweden, a lot of the gypsy brewers over in Copenhagen, they produce some really awesome Black IPAs. Black salts and body malts from Toul, of course. Ghost Brewing's one that I had recently, the Razor Blade, that was really nice, and there's many more over there in Denmark, but those are two that really come to mind so far. So it's a style that you wouldn't normally think would work, but it works out really quite nicely. Definitely a style you need to try if you haven't gotten into it before. So as you can see, this beer is poured a really nice kind of dark ebony rosewood colour. There is a bit of a ruby edge to it, but I would say definitely rosewood ebony kind of colour from this one. Really nice looking beer. There's a half finger of a kind of beigey creamy coloured head on this, some big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones just going up to the boards, the bottom of the head there. I'm sure if it was actually a bit lighter there would be some transparency to it. If I hold it up to the light you can see through it a little bit, but I think it's just the dark colour there. But it smells very nice, and just without even paying too much attention to the aroma, you can smell some of these nice fruity characters coming off the beer. So with taking a bit of a closer look at it, yeah, you can really pick up these typical characters that you would expect from the Simcoe hop. There's a nice kind of passion fruit character in there, that nice juicy but still quite oily fruit. And you can pick up some of the more subtle tropical fruits as well, a little bit of apricot and maybe kind of mango in there too. But you can also smell, it does smell a little bit leafy actually. You can smell that kind of leafy hop out of this one. And interestingly, the malt base in this, it doesn't really come out in the aroma for me. You can smell just a little bit of a sweet chocolate, maybe a bit of brown sugar as well, but none of the kind of roasted, kind of coffee-ish malts that you would normally expect. But that said, when it's an IPA, a Black IPA, usually they are a bit more forward on the hoppy kind of thing, so that shouldn't be unexpected actually. It really just depends on the beer, I guess. Sniffing up a little bit of it, not my day today, but yeah, definitely a more hop forward aroma this one, quite juicy, quite leafy like I'm saying, passion fruit, apricots, maybe a little bit floral, kind of leafy character, but not any kind of pine resin, which is normally what you get from Simcoe actually. And the malt base for me is quite subdued, just a little bit of black malt, a bit of roasted caramel, maybe some kind of chocolate. But let's get this guy out and we'll see how we get on with this. So this is the Black IPA from the Brewdog Prototype 2015 range. Slàinte. It's quite interesting actually, it's very smooth. That's the first thing that comes out of this beer. Yeah, I mean, in comparison to the other ones in the series, it's nowhere near as hoppy. That's the first thing you're going to notice about this beer. For me, it's just not quite as hoppy, and that's one thing that's quite unusual for Brewdog actually. Brewdog are a hophead brewery. They use it with their malty beers. They do very good stouts and things like that where the malt base tends to be a bit stronger, but primarily for me they are a hophead brewery. But this one isn't really that hop forward, and I guess when it's a single hop, maybe that's why. This one's got a lot more malt variety in it, and it is a bit more malt forward. As I always say though, sugar it around your palate a little bit and just let your whole mouth adjust. And to be honest, it probably is fair to say with this one as you take a few more sips of it, the hop profile does start to push its way out a little bit more. Yeah, definitely fair to say that, but it's nowhere near, this beer is nowhere near as bitter as the brown ale was, or the IPL. No way. Yeah. This one really isn't what I was expecting at all, actually. I was expecting this one to be quite dark and quite coffee-ish, a bit like the brown ale was, to be honest. But overall, the malt base in this one is it's quite bready actually. There's almost a kind of rye bread character that just goes across the middle of the palate. On top of that, you have a little bit of roasted character, you know, a little bit of coffee, kind of toasted black malt on this one. I'm not really picking up much of a kind of caramelly sweetness or anything like that, or a chocolate character that you can normally get out of these beers. It is a little bit, it's a very smooth, kind of bready, but still kind of roasted character as well. There is a little bit of that. It's like a roasted bread crust flavour you get in the malt base here. And when you start to move into the aftertaste of the beer, you can really pick up a little bit more of that kind of coffee roastiness in there. But for me, this beer is quite bready and quite smooth, which wasn't really what I was expecting actually from the Black IPAs. And like I said, the hop profile on this one does start to build a little bit as you take more and more in of this beer. So around the edges of your palate, at the back corners, there's a little bit of earthy character, but that's very minimal and very smooth. As you come further forward, you start to get a bit of piney resin there. But again, that's quite smooth. It's nowhere near as dry and hoppy as you can be with that. It's just got a little bit of resin kind of underpinning it, and on top of that, it's a little bit floral. And as you go around the front curve of the tongue, there's a smoother grassiness, but just with that little floral underlining of the beer. And if you go behind the front curve of the tongue, that's where the fruity character is starting to come out. Yeah, there's a little bit of juicy fruitiness to it. Definitely passion fruit for me. It's nowhere near as oily and as pungent as it is when you mix it with grapefruit actually. But you can just feel that little juicy character to it. There's perhaps a little bit of apricot or maybe just a little bit of mango in there too, but for me primarily it's that passion fruit, just a juicy passion fruit flavour that comes out in this one. But pardon me, again, in comparison to some things I've come across, it is quite mild. But yeah, I mean, overall in terms of the flavour, it is nice and it is quite sessionable. You know, the flavours all blend together really well. But what I would say is that in comparison to the other two beers that I've done so far from this series, this one isn't quite as good as those. Definitely not for me. And that's what makes me a bit surprised at this, because they have put it in to be the B-side Black IPA. I mean, the beer is not bad by any means. I'm not saying this is a bad beer, but in comparison to the other two that have come before this one just isn't on the same level for me. And I mean, it is good for a Black IPA as well. It is quite sessionable. You know, Black IPAs can be big, massive, hoppy beers that are sippers, but this one is a bit more sessionable than that, so it gets a thumbs up on that kind of thing. But in terms of the other two, I just have to say, beer is always subjective, and for me, I just enjoyed the other two beers better. There's nothing particularly wrong with this one, but for me, the other two are just a level above this one. But it is a solid Black IPA. So in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, pardon me, I'd say it's mid-bodied. There's a little bit of an oily mouthfeel to this. It's got a nice kind of smoothness to the malt base. As I said, it's quite bready. There is a little bit of the dry roasted character that you would normally associate with the Black IPA, but for me, the kind of roasted character just doesn't come out quite enough. Like for me, the flavours on this one are just a little bit kind of toned down, if that makes sense. I'd like it a bit more piney and a little bit more coffee and roasted for me. It's just that little bit of a kind of toned down thing. That's what makes me say it's more of a session beer rather than just, you know, one that you drink for pure enjoyment. And I guess maybe, and honestly, when it comes to my reviews, I don't drink much beer outside of the stuff I review anymore, so maybe that's what's kind of forming my opinion of this beer. But I mean, if you like a nice sessionable black IPA, by all means, you will enjoy this. But mid-bodied, a little bit oily, smooth carbonation on this one. It's got a little bit of dry character to the malt base, but overall it is very smooth. There's not really much in the way of sweetness like chocolate or caramel or anything like that. The hoppy character does have a little bit of dryness. It comes out more in the aftertaste. But overall, it is quite smooth. For me, this one, the flavours blend together quite well. It is a good session kind of beer, this one, which is interesting for a black IPA. I can see why Brewdog would want to introduce it as one for that, but in comparison to the other ones in the series, it's not on the same level for me. And Brewdog never really produce a bad beer. When you talk about Brewdog beers, they are all really quite good. They are a very high standard, and Brewdog continuously set higher standards for themselves. But for me, the other two beers I've had so far are better than this one. But it's nice. It's a nice sessionable black IPA. If you enjoy the style, I'm sure you'll enjoy this one. So do let me know your own thoughts on it in the comment section below. Always interesting to hear from you guys what you think about the beers that I'm reviewing for you. And of course, Brewdog being one of my local breweries back home, it's always interesting to hear what you guys all over the world think of them too. But yeah, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Always cool to review more Brewdog beers, especially the Prototype ones, because they've produced some pretty awesome beers over the years. But thank you for watching my beer reviews once again. Until the next time, like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed the review. Make sure you go and check out my social media things, but most importantly, go and try some Brewdog beer. Let me know what you think of this one, which became the B-side Black IPA. I'll need to try the new version and see if it's changed at all, but I hope you've enjoyed this review, and I will catch you soon. The next one coming in this series, and the final one actually, will be the Milk Stout. So I'll catch you with that. Slàinte just now.